Hello and welcome to the 24/7 Sports YouTube page. I'm Emily Proud. We are here to discuss the very first edition of this season's college football playoff rankings. And I'm not here to do it alone. I've got some friends here with me, Brandon Marcello and Chris Hummer. Let's bring them in so we can talk to them about these rankings. We're going to start at the top because that's the most exciting. Number one, Tennessee. I'll start with you, Brandon. What do you think about the Vols in the top spot?
All right. Yes, they did it. I think they very well deserve it. If we're going by what the committee goes by, Tennessee has 5 wins against teams who were ranked at that time. That's the most in the country. Tennessee has been impressive offensively week to week. Tennessee has the most impressive individual win this season against Alabama. Of course, they deserve to be number one.
Chris, you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's much question about this. You could quibble and say Tennessee's defense might be a problem long term, but like when you look at what happened on the field, Tennessee beat Alabama, a top 6 team for the committee. Sorry to play spoiler for those of you who haven't seen it, but I hope you have. And yeah, I just think they've been the most consistent team in big situations. As Brandon said, 5 ranked teams at the time, the most stacked resume of anybody out there. And I mean, Tennessee's number one for the first time since 1998. I'm sure Rocky Top's gone crazy.
Yeah, what happened that year? I think they might have won the national championship that year, but man, it has been a long time, 24 years, Tennessee. This is also the first time since 2014 a team not named Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, or Clemson debuted at number one. We did hear a few of those names, though, in that top ranking. Don't worry, Chris, you didn't spoil anything. Let's go back and take a look at the top 12 here. The ones that we really want to focus on, though, are 1, 2, 3, and 4, because those are the ones that will be playing at the end of the season. So, Brandon, I start with you. Is there one team through this 1 through 4 that maybe surprised you a little bit?
I mean, Clemson at number 4 over Michigan did surprise me a little bit. I mean, Georgia at number 3 is not too surprising because the committee, listen, they think ahead. They know that obviously Georgia and Tennessee are playing this weekend, so that will sort itself out for next week's rankings. But seeing Clemson ahead of Michigan did surprise me a little bit, but that goes back to how much they value strength of schedule. And Michigan's strength of schedule in the non-conference is terrible. They play Colorado State, Hawaii, and UConn. Guess which team has the best record of all of them? UConn, believe it or not. At 4-5, those teams are combined 8-18 this season. The non-conference schedule absolutely hurt Michigan in these first set of rankings, and they will improve if they continue to win here going against the Big Ten opponents, but only one win against a team that's ranked right now, and that's Penn State, of course, just recently. Yeah, maybe a little bit surprising, but again, the committee, again, hammering home, non-conference schedule and strength of schedule matters quite a bit to us.
Yeah, Chris, how big of an example are they kind of making out of Michigan? You know, we go back to the fact that you can only play the teams that are in front of you. Ultimately, though, they are scheduling these teams. You didn't expect UConn to be the best team that they faced in the non-conference schedule. But when you look at these two schedules, Michigan and Clemson, is it pretty clear that that's what the committee favored when putting Clemson in the top 4?
It seems that way, yeah. And I think it's really important to note that the committee showed the ACC some respect this week. They have Syracuse at 20, Wake Forest at 21, and NC State at 22. And Clemson won all of those games close, but for all 3 of those teams to be ranked gave Clemson a huge boost in these rankings. Personally, I thought eye test wise, the committee might jump Michigan ahead of Clemson. And as you said, I think it is a bit of a statement about what you do in the non-conference schedule, but I think Michigan's sleeping okay at night. Like if it wins out, they're going to be in the playoff. And in some cases, there is an advantage to having a softer non-conference schedule. It allowed Michigan to figure out its quarterback situation, and it still has everything ahead of it.
You know,
Yes,
real quick
go ahead.
I want to just say real quick and add to this. I think this adds more importance to what we're going to see when we get to the 12-team playoff when it comes to non-conference strength of schedule. And again, I think this is why a lot of conferences are looking at eliminating divisions, but more importantly, maybe going to a 9-game conference schedule like the SEC is thinking about doing. Because if you just so happen to have a weaker than expected non-conference schedule, that could kill you and leave maybe a team or two out of your conference from going to the new 12-team playoff in the future.
So when you look at where Michigan is right now, does this indicate, I'll start with you, Brandon, here, that they have to win out? I mean, they've got to beat Ohio State and they have to be the Big Ten champions in order to make it into the playoff?
I mean, it certainly looks that way. And with the schedule, the way it sets up, I mean, it was always going to be that. I mean, even if they had maybe lost an early season game to a Penn State, but even so, it sets up that way. And listen, the committee, in a lot of ways, again, they set up these rankings, maybe even without realizing it, of it's just going to it's going to settle itself out. It's going to figure itself out because these teams that are in contention, they always play against each other near the end of the season. These blue bloods do, and it'll be figured out. And when we get to the game, we'll get it all settled.
No one has played closer games than TCU. I know we say eye test, but these committee members get tons and tons of data. And Alabama has blown out a lot of teams. TCU has had to come back from a lot of deficits in the first half. How much, Brandon, do you think that they're taking that into consideration, the margin of victory and how they're able to win?
Well, I saw them play Kansas, and they had to come back there in that game. I think that they're looking at this and thinking, okay, we have yet to see TCU really just kind of dominate a team out there and do so consistently week to week. They had to come back against Kansas. Their most impressive win, maybe arguably, is that Kansas State game, and it was against a shorthanded Kansas State team that, quote unquote, was without their starting quarterback, even though we're seeing now that Kansas State is just as good, maybe better, without Adrian Martinez at quarterback, which is kind of crazy to say. But again, this is all selective criteria. There's so many things that they weigh, but sometimes one piece of the puzzle weighs a little bit more than the other piece that they're looking at. So I think that it's just going to be a week-to-week thing that they can change their mind on and choose to focus on. But here's the thing. The CFP does a great job of coaching up the committee chairman for about 6 to 7 hours before he goes on TV and gets all these questions. So he knows exactly how to explain away whatever they decided to do with their biases.
All right, guys, we've done enough of the committee members and talking about what they could improve on and all of these things. But here's the thing, we turned it on you guys. We already asked you what we thought your top 6 would be. And so I want to throw that up on a full screen here so we can compare and contrast. So very similar, but the glaring difference here is between Michigan and TCU. We've talked about both of those squads. Chris, I want you to make the case for why TCU should be in the top 4.
TCU deserves it. They play in the most competitively balanced league in America. They have 4 ranked wins over Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Kansas, and Oklahoma. Obviously, Kansas and Oklahoma haven't necessarily maintained that, but Oklahoma might have a better record if Dylan Gabriel was healthy the whole year, and you could say the same thing about KU. Oklahoma State and Kansas State are still top 15, top 18 teams for the committee, and TCU has the second best offense in America behind Ohio State. I think when you talk about their resume, they have the best resume outside of Tennessee, and they've earned the right to this point to be in the top 4 based on what they've done on the field.
And no Alabama in your top 6. Why is that?
They have a loss. They have that L. Like, I think Alabama is one of the 4 best teams in the country. This isn't about necessarily who I think is best. I think I would probably have Alabama above a couple of those teams in my top 6, but those 6 teams are undefeated. Those 6 teams, to varying degrees, have dealt with the rigors of a Power 5 schedule. And it's unfortunate for Alabama that they played Tennessee on the road, the number 1 team. But Alabama will have a chance to earn its way back in there with its remaining schedule. But as of this moment, I think those 6 teams should rank that high.
Brandon, why do you have Michigan as a top 4 team?
Because go blue. That's my reasoning.
I mean,
no,
come on.
I'm old school. You know, I'm not into the analytics because I'm just not smart enough for it. But I go by eye test. Michigan just looks great in the trenches. Their offense is a little bit more dynamic this season than it was last year. The defense is doing enough to get to the quarterback. They are pretty much dominating everybody they have faced in the Big Ten in the trenches. They just look like a bigger, better, faster team than everybody they have faced. And they just answer the call every single weekend. And they can't reschedule games during the season going, well, this team doesn't have a lot of wins right now in the non-conference, so let's schedule someone else. They can't do it. They just play who they've got. they look like, when you watch them in television, watch them in person, they look like one of those top teams in the country. And I've seen Clemson in person myself. They look like a better team overall and deeper, by the way, than that Clemson team. So, yeah, I put them ahead of Clemson as we stand today.
Okay, I like it. You guys both making the case for your top 6, but there is a lot more teams that we need to talk about. Let's talk about 12 through 7. I think what's interesting about these rankings is obviously it's the first one, so a lot's going to change. So I'm curious from your perspective, Chris, who has a shot to maybe make some noise and come up from that 12 to 7 range?
I think LSU of all those teams actually controls their destiny the best. LSU with its remaining schedule, obviously they have a game of Alabama ahead of it. And then LSU is going to get whoever comes out of the East, either Tennessee or Georgia, if it makes the SEC championship game. And I think by positioning LSU at number 10, it controls its destiny in a way that no other team does. You could probably point to Mississippi in the same way, Ole Miss. They still have Alabama ahead of it as well, potential SEC championship game slate ahead of it. I think those two teams control their own destiny, whereas USC, Oregon, UCLA, those teams coming from the Pac-12 are going to need a lot of help based on teams around the country. So I like the two teams from the SEC that I know if they went out have a better than not chance of reaching the playoff. I would say it's 99% or better. Both teams get in if they went out the rest of the way.
Brandon, what do you think? Who's the lowest rated team that could crash the party here?
Oh, man. Well, we're talking lowest rated. I think it's a team that is going to have a big game this week, and that's LSU. If they can run the table, they will be the first 2-team playoff to make the playoff, because they're going to be facing so many of those great teams. They've already got big win against Ole Miss. I think the committee will, quickly kind of forget what happened against Tennessee, even though that was home. I also really like right now. I like Oregon because of the way they're playing. I do think they've improved quite a bit since that 49-3 week 1 loss to Georgia. It was at a neutral site, but it was heavily Georgia because it was played in Atlanta. So you got to weigh that a little bit. It wasn't quite a neutral site game, even though it just says it on paper. And if Oregon runs the table, and if USC can keep its head above water, and everybody else, the Pac-12 keeps that strength of schedule going up, maybe Oregon should be in there, even though they have a 46-point loss to Georgia. But Georgia, of course, also needs to keep winning to help Oregon out.
I want to be honest, like I understand the Oregon argument, and I'm sorry to cut anybody off, but like how can you put a team in that lost by essentially 40 plus points? Like,
I mean, that was my question. How?
What? Why wouldn't you?
Week 1 weirdness?
Why wouldn't you?
Listen, there's been enough West Coast bias here, okay?
Yeah.
I will not hear this anymore. No, I think that a lot has got to go right for that to happen. I agree with you there. But I do think that Oregon looks like that Oregon team. I was watching it in person week 1. I was all like, this is not even a top 25 team. But right now, they look like one of the 8 best teams in the country to me, potentially. And one, if they just continue to win and they blow out opponents, and maybe they should be in. But a lot's got to happen for that to happen, obviously.
I think that would be interesting because in that scenario, obviously Georgia would have to stay strong. Let's say Georgia gets that number 1 seed. And then what we're going to have is just a rematch of a game we saw in week 1 where one team won by 40 plus points.
Bring it. And then Bo Nix's prophecy can be fulfilled.
Okay. I'm sure Dan Lanning would love another shot at his former squad just to put up a little bit of a better performance. Oregon only has 1 win against a ranked team. That's UCLA. It's also their only win against a team with a winning record. So that schedule certainly, their resume needs a little bit of help. We talked a little bit about LSU, so I want to get to a question that we have here in the chat. Here we go. It's from Braden. He says, if LSU wins out and beats Tennessee in Atlanta, will LSU or Tennessee be ranked higher due to Tennessee's blowout win earlier in the season? Chris, let's start with you.
That's an interesting question.
Oh my gosh.
I assume Tennessee with 1 loss at that point might end up still ranking higher. I guess it depends on how the game in Atlanta goes. If LSU blows Tennessee out and shows that their season is flipped considerably, maybe they have a shot. But a 1-loss Tennessee who loses close and their second chance against LSU at the end of the year, like I think that Man, that's a difficult hypothetical. I'm not going to lie. I'm stumbling because the committee also rewards conference championships when they look at everything. And that is a fascinating question. I think I still lean Tennessee with one loss, but Brandon could think otherwise. That would be really compelling.
I'm with you there, Chris. I think it's just as simple as you've got one loss. That's better than the 2 losses right now. Also, the committee, we're talking hypotheticals. The committees at that point will also look at common opponents, but also whether there's been any injuries on those teams. How do the rosters look different? And then, as you said, Chris, I think it's a very important thing. How are those teams trending going into that championship game? Was Tennessee's offense all of a sudden only averaging 32 points a game or something like that, and LSU was just going off? There's a lot of things to weigh there, but man, what an intriguing question.
I like it. Okay. And I think it's interesting too, because it's a rematch, right? And the way that Tennessee and LSU faced in that first one, that's got to be weighed in. I mean, that wasn't at the very beginning of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And whoever came up with that question, they should be on our content team, because that's some head spinning stuff right there.
Braden LaRussa, I like it. He's got a little LSU Tiger in his bio, so I'm sure he's very interested. The reason I got Clemson on the brain is because our next question is from Florida. Is this the state or the name? All right. Clemson is not good at football. Sorry. Do these people watch the games? Brandon, your eyes got the biggest. So I'm going to go to you first. Not good at football. Thoughts?
Well, Florida man, you would know not good football because there's a lot of teams in the state of Florida just aren't playing good football right now. No, I'm kidding. I Josh, I play. No, I think, listen, Clemson has been tested. I know that sounds weird considering the schedule, but that game against Wake Forest on the road still stands out to me. The way DJ Uyonglele was able to win that game with some amazing throws in that game in overtime, but also he had to throw guys open in tight coverages. He won that game and proved to everybody, one, that he should be the starting quarterback, but also that I'm not so sure, even with Kate Klubnik, because everybody's in love with him, I'm not so sure that they win that game. And they've been able to keep things together in some tight contests, as we've seen. And so right now, sure, put them where they're at right now, but they got to continue to win and win out to have a chance to get in that playoff. I don't think we're talking about a one-loss Clemson team at this point getting into the playoff. I think we're talking about Clemson's got to run the table, and, the path is set, and it's as simple as that.
Clemson's a tough team to evaluate too, Chris, right? Because a lot of the teams that they faced have not put up great performances since being beat by Clemson. Wake Forest, NC State, Syracuse, and Clemson's coming off a game right now in which they had to bench their starting quarterback. I mean, how tough is the evaluation of Clemson when you take into consideration that their resume has just kind of been like this and their play has kind of been like this?
Yeah, Clemson's a really difficult evaluation. I think the best way to put it is Clemson's a very, very good football team, but this is certainly not the Clemsons that we saw last decade that were competing for national championships. Clemson ranks 68th nationally in yards per play. That's a very pedestrian number. DJ Uiagalelei is playing a lot better this season, but he's still not playing like one of the elite quarterbacks in college football. Obviously, he got benched on a couple of weeks ago against Syracuse, so that attests to that. But Clemson still does have 3 top 25 wins for the committee. Clemson still is one of the most talented defenses in the country, especially that front 7. And Clemson still does have a lot of championship DNA, which I know sounds ridiculous. So I think, as Brandon said, if Clemson wins out, they're going to be in the playoff. Like, they would have beaten enough ranked teams by that point to justify that. But this is a team that might struggle once we get to the playoff format, when they have to go against the best teams in the country, your Ohio States, your Ohio States, your Alabamas, your Tennessees, teams of that ilk. I just don't think that Clemson is equipped to play in those games if they get into a shootout or something.
Watch out for Notre Dame this week, Clemson.
That's
I'm
true.
just saying.
Okay.
Yeah, no, there's still a lot of season left. I mean, that's what's fun is this is the first edition of this season, and we could talk about this all night long, but we got to cut it off because we got a lot of other fun things going on here at 24/7 Sports. So be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't go anywhere because Late Kick with Josh Pate is coming up here at the top of the hour. Guys, thank you so much for the great conversation, and we will see you back here next week for round 2.